French President Emmanuel Macron has issued a stern warning to Israel, urging the country to refrain from pursuing annexation or forced evictions in Palestinian territories. His remarks come amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, where unilateral actions are widely seen as potential triggers for broader conflict. Macron stressed that aggressive measures will not stop the growing wave of international support for the recognition of a Palestinian state. During his meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Macron underlined that global diplomatic momentum is now stronger than ever, with increasing numbers of nations backing the two-state solution as the only viable path to lasting peace. He also criticized the United States for refusing to grant visas to Palestinian officials to attend the United Nations General Assembly, calling the decision unacceptable. Macron urged Washington to reverse this policy immediately, stressing that diplomacy must not be obstructed and that international coordination is essential to ensure fair and sustainable support for Palestine. Macron emphasized the urgent need for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza to halt the spiraling violence. He called on all sides to respect international humanitarian law and safeguard civilians caught in the conflict. The French president highlighted the necessity of large-scale humanitarian aid, including food, medicine, and critical healthcare, to alleviate the suffering of Palestinians. He insisted that this aid must reach the people directly, without obstruction from blockades or bureaucratic delays. Macron also demanded the release of hostages, including activists and aid workers, as a vital step in building trust and opening the door for further negotiations. In his strategic discussions with Saudi Arabia, Macron stressed the upcoming international conference in New York on September 22 to be co-chaired with the kingdom. The goal is to rally as much global support as possible for the two-state solution, underscoring the importance of coordinated international action. He further stated that lasting peace can only be achieved if comprehensive reforms are implemented within the Palestinian Authority, including greater transparency, efficiency, and accountability, alongside the disarmament of groups such as Hamas. These, he insisted, are not merely political measures, but essential steps to secure human rights and long-term regional stability. Beyond calls for ceasefire and humanitarian access, Macron stressed the importance of active diplomacy between all parties. He asserted that direct dialogue between Israel and Palestine must be encouraged, with neutral international mediators ensuring that negotiations remain fair and constructive. Macron highlighted the role of France and Saudi Arabia as key facilitators in this process, pointing out that the upcoming New York conference would provide an important platform for concrete peace initiatives. The French leader also underscored the need for diplomatic pressure on Hamas to disarm, stabilizing conditions in Palestinian territories. At the same time, he called for internal reforms within the Palestinian Authority to ensure better governance, improved transparency, and more effective use of international aid. Macron warned that neglecting these steps could reignite violence in Gaza, with rising civilian casualties as the inevitable outcome. In his talks with Saudi leadership, he emphasized the need for broad global backing, including Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America, to reinforce momentum for Palestinian statehood at international forums. Macron made clear that unilateral decisions by Israel, including annexation or evictions, would draw condemnation worldwide and damage diplomatic relations. France, he reaffirmed, remains committed to leading peace efforts with a focus on regional stability, human rights, and the achievement of a fair and durable two-state solution. Macron underscored that international support for Palestine is not mere rhetoric but a tangible commitment requiring concrete diplomatic, political, and humanitarian steps. He stressed the importance of coordination with the United Nations, the Arab League, and allied nations to ensure effective implementation of every initiative. The recognition of a Palestinian state, Macron argued, must be accompanied by real measures that guarantee civil, economic, and social rights, including access to education, healthcare, and fair economic opportunities. On security, the French president called for an international stabilization mission in Gaza to protect civilians, monitor ceasefire compliance, and guarantee that humanitarian aid reaches its destination. He further emphasized the need for sustained dialogue between the Palestinian Authority and the global community to ensure reforms are applied consistently and transparently. Macron warned that annexation or eviction by Israel would jeopardize diplomatic momentum and threaten regional peace. He stressed that the joint France-Saudi-led international conference in New York must not be symbolic, but a strategic event to push for tangible outcomes, including Hamas disarmament, Palestinian reforms, and equitable humanitarian distribution. Macron concluded by urging all nations to shoulder their moral and political responsibility to ensure Palestinian rights are respected and the conflict is resolved through peaceful, sustainable means. Macron turned his attention to the United States, criticizing Washington's decision to deny visas to Palestinian officials seeking to attend the UN General Assembly. He argued that this move obstructs international diplomacy and undermines global efforts to recognize Palestine. The French president stressed that administrative or political barriers imposed by major powers only worsen conditions on the ground and threaten regional stability. He urged that the decision be overturned immediately and replaced with constructive engagement that allows Palestinian leaders full participation in international forums. During his talks with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Macron underlined the need for stronger international cooperation, particularly among Europe, Asia, and Africa, to reinforce Palestine's standing on the world stage. He reiterated that the upcoming New York conference must serve as a pivotal moment for collective action, advancing the two-state solution as a just and sustainable path forward. Macron also emphasized comprehensive reforms within the Palestinian Authority, highlighting the importance of transparency, accountability, and governance capacity in managing international aid. He stressed that disarming groups like Hamas is crucial for establishing security in Gaza and ensuring ordinary Palestinians can live in peace. Macron concluded by reminding allies that every action supporting dialogue, reform, and humanitarian aid strengthens Palestine's position and paves the way for long-term peace. Macron reinforced the urgency of coordinated global efforts to deliver humanitarian assistance across Gaza without obstruction. He insisted that aid, including food, medicine, healthcare facilities, and emergency infrastructure, must be distributed fairly, particularly to children and vulnerable populations most affected by the conflict. The French leader highlighted the necessity of an international stabilization mission to monitor ceasefire compliance, safeguard civilians, and guarantee the effective delivery of humanitarian relief. He also stressed the immediate release of hostages and aid workers as a confidence-building step critical for advancing negotiations. On the political front, Macron noted that the New York conference on September 22 would serve as a defining moment to compel all parties back to diplomacy while advancing internal reforms within the Palestinian Authority. The French president warned that unilateral Israeli actions, including annexations or evictions, would only deepen the crisis, trigger global condemnation, and obstruct international diplomacy. He reiterated that Palestinian reform, Hamas disarmament, and large-scale aid distribution are absolute requirements for achieving regional stability. Macron closed his statement by calling on international partners to intensify diplomatic and humanitarian coordination, declaring that every tangible step supporting Palestinians is a vital contribution to world peace. Beyond humanitarian concerns, Macron highlighted the necessity of consistent diplomatic pressure to ensure the two-state solution becomes a reality. He emphasized the importance of coordination among France, Saudi Arabia, the United Nations, and allied countries to strengthen Palestine's global position. Macron reiterated the need for internal reforms within the Palestinian Authority, stressing that governance must become more transparent, effective, and accountable to properly manage international support. Disarming Hamas, he added, remains a crucial step toward stable security conditions that allow civilians to live peacefully. The French president warned that unilateral actions by Israel, including annexation or eviction, would destroy diplomatic momentum and provoke global backlash. In discussions with Saudi leadership, Macron highlighted the September 22 New York conference as a critical turning point in peace efforts. He called on all nations to take active roles, diplomatic and humanitarian alike, to secure regional stability. The French leader made clear that the success of this conference would directly shape the future of the Palestinian people and the security of the wider Middle East. He insisted that practical measures, such as distributing large-scale aid, releasing hostages, and implementing Palestinian reforms, must be enacted to safeguard international credibility. Macron concluded by stating that peace in the region is not merely a regional responsibility but a global duty requiring cooperation and commitment. Macron closed his address by stressing that peace and stability in Palestine are the responsibility of the entire international community. He warned that any aggressive or unilateral actions harming Palestinians would face serious diplomatic consequences and jeopardize stability across the Middle East. The French president highlighted the upcoming New York conference on September 22 as a defining moment for allied nations to unite, strengthen Palestine's position, and advance the two-state solution as a fair and lasting framework. He emphasized that the conference must yield concrete measures, including reforms within the Palestinian Authority, Hamas disarmament, fair distribution of humanitarian aid, and the release of hostages and humanitarian workers. Macron insisted that global support cannot remain rhetorical but must be translated into diplomatic coordination, real action on the ground, and international oversight to ensure effectiveness. He underlined that a permanent ceasefire and stabilization are the foundation for lasting peace, and all partner nations bear both moral and political responsibility to support these measures. Macron concluded by declaring that the rights of Palestinians must be upheld, their safety guaranteed, and any aggression prevented to avoid further escalation. With determination, he stated that the world cannot turn a blind eye to Palestinian suffering, and that the two-state solution remains the only path to a just, sustainable, and stable peace for the entire region.